What is your most traumatic experience with a teacher? Before we start, be sure to like and subscribe to be the first to know about new videos. Comment your answer below. When I was in high school I got a lot of nosebleeds. Like a lot. So I got one in the middle of class and I asked the teacher for a tissue. She said she didn't have any, so I asked to go to the toilet to get one, then she said no. Soon I asked again when blood was dripping from my hands and she yelled at me for repeating myself, which is apparently bad. Soon a puddle of blood was on the table, then I got sent to isolation for disrupting the class. I was then suspended for acting inappropriate during class. She was then fired for putting my life at risk. I gotta say, when you get a nosebleed like that, you really see how much blood is inside of you. I was bullied really bad. Kids kept drawing awful ugly photos and leaving them on my desk with profanity towards my appearance. I had enough one day after dealing with a lot of abuse at home and the bullying at school, and when I saw another, broke down crying and brought it to my teacher. She just grabbed it, looked and asked if I wanted it back. Did nothing to help, wouldn't listen to me about the constant bullying and did absolutely nothing. I was in 7th grade and still remember it to this day. Mine is more of a light-hearted traumatic. In 4th grade I collected Yu-Gi-Oh cards and I had gotten the at the time new 3 Egyptian god cards. Well, I was caught playing with them during class and my teacher took them from me and threw them out. I was devastated after all the packs opened and cards traded to acquire them. I never forgave her. Did they ever end up being worth anything before all the reprint boxes? I would've loved to see her face if she found out they were worth some coin. Teacher told me I was a liar to the whole class as she didn't believe my grandmother was a World War II evacuee. She refused to believe me as she assumed my mum was younger than she looked at the time, and therefore my grandmother was younger as well. She thought my mum was in her late 20s when in reality she was in her early 40s at the time. I'm 65, and I still remember when I was 6 and the nun told me to wash my desk and then wring out the sponge, and when I squeezed it instead of twisting it, told the whole class that my mother was a bad mother because she had not taught me correctly. I knew if I protested that my mom was a good mom I would be punished. It still bothers me that I didn't stand up for her. Why did that nun have to put me in that position? Bleep. My favorite teacher in middle school was arrested for child pornography. He wasn't my favorite after that. He also wasn't my teacher after that. During quiet reading time, teacher brought me to front of the class because I was reading a book for girls, and he asked me, why are you reading a girl's book? Are you a girl? Then made me choose a book for boys to read. I was maybe 10 or 11. The book was Matilda, by the way. Got accused of plagiarism over a paper I wrote and didn't plagiarize that I was really excited about because of how well I thought I did on it. Enthusiasm fully destroyed. I said that the dot over the I or J is called a tittle. She said it's not a tittle, it's a dot. And with that, she accused me of being impertinent. Technically it was the vice principal, but the day my brother died, apparently he thought it would be a good idea to walk in on story time the teacher was reading to the class, set me on his lap and tell me in front of everyone that my brother committed suicide. We were discussing Jean Vanier and L'Arche. For context, Jean Vanier decided to invite 2 intellectually disabled men to live with him and started setting up homes for them so they wouldn't be in asylums. The teacher looked right at me, I'm disabled, and said, oh yeah, Vanier created those homes so you people wouldn't be bothering people because the handicapped don't function in society. My friend I left just to talk it out. He got fired a few years later because he did not have his license up to date. Cherry on top, his wife was the vice principal. I got into a shouting match with my band director before a marching band competition in another state. He had anger issues and the fight was over him calling me out in front of everyone for messing up my saxophone solo the week before. There was no one else around to see or hear the shouting. He never said so much as a word to me for the remainder of my time in high school, and I was perfectly fine with it. One time I was on my period and I asked the teacher to go to the bathroom multiple times. She refused to let me go. Eventually I stained my uniform and the chair. I was so embarrassed that I started crying. When my mother found out, she made the school fire that bleep. In 5th grade I would often become sick to my stomach and cry for hours. Later in life found out that these were panic attacks. My teacher spanked me with a bungee cord until I stopped crying. I still resent her and my parents for that. Used to love math and science, until I had a teacher in 6th grade who would bully, mock, and do everything in his power to embarrass me in front of the entire class. I lost all love I had for school after that class. Bleep you, Mr. Bright. Not exactly me, but had a teacher yell at one of my friends for not doing his homework and give him a Saturday school, even though his parents had died the night before. Had a teacher who hated my dad because he used to trespass onto the facility my dad was a manager of back in the day. Bleep was taking it all on me and was pretty open about it. Not so traumatic, but was a very bad experience for many. My science teacher subtracted 3 points of everyone's grades because he had a bad day. Half of my friends didn't make it to the next year. I was in the 4th grade. Found a dry erase marker on the playground. I wrote my initials on the tire swing. Classmate rats me out. I get yelled at for like 20 minutes straight about vandalism of school property. She starts going off about how it's the first step to becoming a criminal. Being a little kid, this scared the bleep out of me. It was probably another 2 years before I believed that I wasn't going to become a criminal as an adult. I accidentally played footsie with a teacher. He was my English teacher and also the baseball coach. The baseball and softball teams traveled together sometimes and somehow we wound up sitting at the same table. Though I was nudging someone else and he said something. I turned beet red. 6th grade. I was 11. Hadn't been diagnosed with ADHD yet. The only way I could pay attention in class was if I doodled in the margins of my notes, and bounced my legs. My history teacher noticed I did this, and if he caught me he'd rip the page out of my notebook, show it to the class, and marvel at what a bad student and unintelligent person I was, to everyone. I was talking about the flying squirrels at my grandparents' cabin to a friend and the teacher overheard me. He bellowed out, "There's no such thing as flying squirrels, don't lie just to get people to pay attention to you, woman," face palming. Screamed at me because I came in smiling and humming BC it was my birthday, said it was disruptive and I cried on the spot and now I have burning hatred for that teacher, but hey, she got hit by a car, don't worry, not a scratch toe, just bumped. Teacher accused me of stealing artwork I imagined and created myself. She failed me for the quarter. Hands down the best teacher I ever had, got pulled out mid-class to get arrested for multiple child molestation charges. Computer teacher shamed me into withdrawing from the one programming class the school offered after the first day of it because he said he didn't think I was capable of learning how to program and that other kids more capable couldn't take it because I was filling a spot. I had a teacher bring a knife to school and threatened me with it as a joke. He didn't get any reprimand to my knowledge and I hated going to class for the rest of the year. I wasn't removed from the class since it was the only advanced Spanish class. If there hadn't been witnesses, I would have thought he'd dreamed it. I did get put in the SOG pit for misbehaviors. Perhaps SOG does not the English word. It was the worst time for my life. Singapore school system was horrible. I had a teacher in 8th grade who obviously didn't like me. She was awful. I was kind of having a hard time fitting in and getting emotionally bullied. Then my parents got a divorce, and I admit I was off at times and it probably showed that I took it out on other students. So before class started, I was goofing off with other children and she turned at me and said, "You realize nobody likes you, right?" I was taken back and just kind of reinforced what I already knew, that I didn't and probably would never fit in. Friend thought he was funny. We were sitting with one of our teachers, he was a TA and he decided to show me a new handshake. Go to slap his hand only for him to move it last second, resulting in me slapping this teacher's bleep off Marshall. I had some mental health issues developing and spent a lot of time out of class with the well-being staff. When someone asked where I was one day, the teacher, who I previously looked up to and had confided in, decided to tell everyone that I was doing terribly and needed help. When I confronted him and said, "Dude, what the bleep?" he said he thought it would help so people would be gentle. I do believe he had good intentions, but it did not bleep help. I had a teacher who found out I was bi and refused to let anyone sit in the seat next to me at my table. It wasn't like I was in the back of the class, I was dead center front row, and she said it out loud to the class. Teacher accused me of being a bad kid, cheating on tests, having ADHD. I made good grades, didn't cheat, went to a psychologist just to tell her for a fact I didn't have ADHD. I was just an admittedly over-talkative and energetic kid, and it wasn't like I was wheeling in my wheelchair to the back of the playground and smoking crack or something. I was a third grader. Lol, she told me to shut up. Well, I once had a teacher who would read our test scores in front of the entire class. In the same school I also had a teacher grab my friend by the ear and pull really hard. His ear was red and hurt the rest of the day. First grade, the teacher didn't like me for whatever reason. Always counted my papers off a point for no reason. Not the part that gave me issues though. She assumed that because I didn't like math that I was bad at it. We spent hours a week counting little paper tokens when the other kids were doing their other assignments. I'm not and never have been bad at math A to B range, but I didn't like it then, and that only reinforced my dislike of it. I have social anxiety, and was nervous about having to play a song that described my life for my high school senior English class. My teacher grabbed a cape and like a hat or something from a closet, then stood on my desk and danced around while announcing to the class I was nervous and she was trying to show me there was nothing to be nervous about. Called a whole lot of attention to me and my anxiety in such a weird way. Probably sounds stupid to most people, but I did not appreciate that at all. Totally did the opposite of calming my nerves. My 4th grade teacher was friends with this 5th grade teacher in my elementary, and one day I misbehaved and my 4th grade teacher kept me inside for recess. Then I met the 5th grade teacher that day and he said he was gonna keep me and my friend in every day when we go to 5th grade, and he sure as bleep did, and he made us do squats while playing Welcome to the Jungle through the whole song. To this day I have flashbacks when I hear Axl on mainstream radio. My teacher called me out in front of the whole class saying I had ADHD after being diagnosed, and asked if I took my meds today for everyone to hear. This was before ADHD was just a big joke that everyone had. She got Teacher of the Year award that year even though she was mean as hell. I finally got a good grade on a test one time and she accused me of cheating also. Listening to my health teacher explain that all gay people were child molesters. I was openly gay. I brought chips to class. She got angry and grabbed it away from me and shouted like crazy. For a primary school kid like me, that was traumatic. My 4th grade teacher played a game in math class where we'd have to write the answer to the problem on a whiteboard, hold it up, and if you got it wrong, you'd have to do a consequence dance, sing, anything embarrassing. I struggled with the math we were learning, so I was always getting questions wrong with a few other students and I hated the game. It only made me hate math more and I fell further and further behind. I thought I was just terrible at math until I finally got a great teacher sophomore year. In grade school my teacher had me and 2 other students stay back during recess so another teacher could come in, drag our desks into the hall, tip them over and rifle through everything. I was so confused as to why this was happening and why that teacher was so maniacal. In the end we got to put our desks back and my teacher told me that someone stole the other teacher's candy bars earlier that morning and they thought it was us because she put her bag down in the hall next to us when we were waiting to go to our first class. Lo and behold, the teacher found her candy bars and rewarded each of us with 1 candy bar. To write this and think back on it, it's so weird and a bit scarring. In 2nd or 3rd grade I had a sub one day and there was a math question that was 300,260. We just had to add the numbers together. Easy, right? I added them together and obviously got 362, but this dumbass said that it was 326 because of the placement of the numbers in the question. She then proceeded to bring me to the front of the class and say I was dumb and didn't deserve friends because I was too retarded to do math. She got fired 2 days later. My math teacher used to use me as a bad example for other students, and he used to constantly remind me that I am terrible in math and would never succeed in life. This still gets to me sometimes, but it has been a couple of years now since the last time I've seen him. Oh well. Not exactly traumatic, but I honestly had urges to just get up and leave. The teacher was ridiculously hypocritical and obnoxious. Every day when we came in she would criticize us about our life choices and then talk all about her life. Then during exams, including the final we had, she cracked down on us talking, yet during the whole test she would spill her guts out. It wasn't even a small whisper like most teachers do while talking during a test, she was nearly yelling. I pissed my pants in 7th grade because I was so terrified to ask my science teacher to go to the restroom. Luckily the bell rang shortly after and none of my fellow classmates knew. But I can remember later that year she brought up how she had made 2 kids piss their pants, as if she took pride in the fact that she terrified her students. My overweight band teacher closed the door to his office and yelled at me for 40 minutes straight because I asked if I could miss a weekend event as water boy to attend my best friend's birthday. Bleep you, Mike. I was pretty sick with an eating disorder in high school and consequently had to stop taking gym classes. The gym teacher cornered me in the hallway and said, "So how long is this going to be a thing?" To which I replied that I didn't know, but I would be out of the class for at least a semester. His response was something along the lines of, "I thought it would only take you a week or two / I didn't think it would take you that long." Looking back on it, I hope maybe I educated him a bit on the subject, so if another student is in the same situation he can act with a bit more compassion. When I was 11 years old, I spent a lot of time playing outdoors. My complexion went from wheatish to dark, and also I had like really curly hair and decided to grow it out. School reopens and my class teacher was like, "Go cut your hair, I don't want bleep in my class." My teacher asked what problems we had on the homework. I immediately yelled 2 to 24, which were the actual problems we had to do for the homework. What he actually meant was what we found difficult about the homework. He looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Oh, you bleep. Smart bleep," with the straightest face. I was genuinely confused and kind of scared. In 2nd grade, at the end of school one day, a few of us were up getting our backpacks on earlier than the announcement, and my teacher, Miss Grayson from Pearson, decides to pull on the back of mine and another kid's backpack handle in an attempt to aggressively get us back to our seats, but instead we tumbled to the ground on our backs. We both went to the principal after that, but nothing ever happened to her. You have been visited by Sad Cat. Like this video and subscribe to the channel to make Sad Cat happy again.